manipulative, enigmatic, malevolent, even evil. These are some of the words that have been thrown around over the years in order to describe the character of Lady Macbeth. She plays a vital role in the sequence of events during the development of the play Macbeth. Initially, we understand her as wife of main character Macbeth, but she is more than just that. Although she does not provide a prominent stature over the story, her single role dynamically intertwines the storyline with the eventual ending and conclusion that we associate with. The salient interpretation of Lady Macbeth is as a manipulative and highly egotistical character in her wants and desires. Lady Macbeth is seen as a figure that is highly contradicting to the ideal accepted feminine persona of a Jacobin society female, one the original audience would not attribute to. We are first introduced to Lady Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 5, where she receives a letter from her husband who describes his encounter with the three witches and the foretold, quote, prophecy, unquote, to become King of Scotland in Act 1, Scene 3. It is after she reads the letter that she begins a soliloquy that questions her husband's intentions, as she believes he is too fallible, and this is evident by some of the language she uses to describe the persona of Macbeth as being, quote, too full of the milk of human kindness, which relates back to Macbeth's kind-fulfilling goodwill nature, while also saying, what thou art promised, yet I do fear thy nature. Initially questioning if Macbeth can fulfill the foretold prophecy, become king, as well as commit regicide, but more on that later. Lady Macbeth calls upon her spiritual beliefs in order to earn these egotistical desires, although she begins to fear that she will fall into a feminine persona, but quotes such as, come you spirits, that tender my mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me with the direst of cruelty from crown to toe top. It is here we see a theme of spirituality take place. Lady Macbeth calls upon these demonic spirits in order to fulfill her with hatred, aka direst cruelty. Although in Jacobin context, it would be highly conspicuous that any sort of spiritual belief outside of Christianity is ethically wrong, hence why witches were persecuted. Lady Macbeth now engages with a sort of malevolent side in order to fulfill her implacable goal for Macbeth to become king. Further on, Macbeth enters the scene and is coerced and convinced by Lady Macbeth to commit regicide on King Duncan. But originally, Macbeth shows a good relationship with King Duncan. Also a distant relative, he seems to be quite content with the current king until the appearance of the witches and the persuasion of Lady Macbeth. Although Lady Macbeth, who in Jacobin context must be loyal and subject to the husband in his actions, wants and desires. Although she engages with Macbeth in a very passive-aggressive manner in order to persuade him. Initially, Shakespeare introduces and develops the characteristics of Macbeth to be a larger-than-life figure, one of great honour and loyalty. Macbeth, whose attitude completely subverts the introductory development made by Shakespeare, the one the audience can associate with Macbeth to be, he now becomes a more gullible, cowardly, and highly fallible figure when around Lady Macbeth. This egotistical persona of Lady Macbeth, it happens throughout the play, until later on we see a more fallible side to her, as she becomes haunted by her previous actions initiated to rule Scotland towards late King Macbeth. Lady Macbeth now becomes perpetuated and morose. She begins performing a plethora of unusual acts, such as sleepwalking, as she believes she has blood on her hands. Act 5, Scene 1 dynamically builds the final nail in the coffin. Lady Macbeth is quoted as saying, quote, the Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is she now? Now these hands will never be clean. It is here that Lady Macbeth confesses to the husband's acts of murder of Macduff's wife, who is also known as the Thane of Fife's wife. This quote shows that Lady Macbeth has uncontrollable resentment towards the latter actions of Macbeth after becoming king. Realizing her mistake, she now becomes startled towards the dichotomized character of King Macbeth. Unable to control him as she could previously, Lady Macbeth now profusely develops a standardized Jacobin feminine persona. This inevitably leads to her suicide and the eventual murder of Macbeth in retaliation. Such actions by Lady Macbeth further adds onto Shakespeare's use of themes and dynamic use of character perspective throughout the play. But let's conclude here. Although originally, to understand Lady Macbeth, we must understand her desires and egotistical perspective. Although her initial struggle for power comes at great cost, Lady Macbeth adheres to one of two main microcosms portrayed by Shakespeare. Lady Macbeth, whom falls subject to demonic spirituality and becomes victimized to the pernicious foretelling of the witch's prophecy. Shakespeare highlights the purposeful dangers of witchcraft and black magic throughout Jacobin society. While also, Lady Macbeth should act upon Jacobin female social acceptance, her desires are very clear and permissive. Shakespeare uses his character of Lady Macbeth as another miniature microcosm for changing social standards and themes of social change within British society. Shakespeare lays down a future foundation, a foundation of a female we associate with today, and that is Lady Macbeth.